Welcome, viewing several once again to, I think it's episode 28 or 29 of my little series I like to call Hands Up. Who loves a train set? Me. So, today is a fun one because I received my two train sets that I bought from the Hornby Railway Collectors Association auction. And they were auctioning off Hornby 00, Hornby Gauge O, and some other items. And I won. One of the things I got was this late Clockwork Gauge O set. So this one is a type. It's called number 30 set, and this box dates it. This set was a post-war one. It was made from 1956, and according to the literature, it was available until about 1965, by which time they'd stopped sort of making them, but I think they were still selling them when Triang had bought Hornby by then, and the old Meccano Hornby, and it was the end of the Gauge O. But I think even, it's a great set, but I think even in the sort of early 60s, with the Playcraft and Triang stuff, a lot of this older Clockwork tin plate stuff was beginning to, seem quite old-fashioned. Really, the golden age of Hornby Gauge O was before the war, where they made most of their the peak of it with the bigger engines and electric 3-rail as well as Clockwork, and obviously that stuff is worth a lot more money, but these are available quite cheap. I bought this. Hammer price of this set was £23, so I was very pleased with that, because I've got a lot of Hornby Gauge O Clockwork, but most of it I've bought in drips and drabs, just an engine here, a big bag, carrier bag full of dirty track. The great thing about the track is you don't have to clean it because it's dead rail if you're running Clockwork, so you don't have to worry too much. You just have to get it to be flat, and you can do that by bending it if you need to. It's pretty robust. It's lasted for years and years, and it goes the oldest items of this system are 100 years old now, because it's like 1925 or so when they started making them. But this set came out in 1956, as I say, but this type of box lid was brought in sometime towards the end, I think. Before that, they would have had the red box lid with the picture pasted on the middle. I don't have, out of all the Hornby O gauge stuff I've got, as I say, most of it I've bought in bits. I have got this, and I've got another set which is the other type of set with the bigger kind of scale stuff. Same track. But yeah, so I will be showing that one next, but it won't fit on here. And if you try and run the bigger trains on the small radius, they don't stay on the track, because obviously they're Clockwork, so they run at whatever speed they run, which is quite fast when they're fully wound. So these sets they made kind of, with Hornby Gauge O, there was kind of 3 tiers really. There was your top tier was your kind of bigger stuff. I'll show you an example and compare it to this. Then you had the low end was what they used to call Type 0, and after the war they replaced it. There was kind of M0 and M1, and the early M1s didn't have the M0s were just had no reversing or stop mechanism on them. I think they were just they just run, whereas the M1, which this is kind of based on, that did have a reverse mechanism which came in about 1930 when they revised it. Now in the 50s the Type 30 loco replaced the M1 and the Type 20 replaced the M0, but they're essentially the same. This one was only available in the one green livery, but it does have the reversing mechanism, which is I think I've got a Type 20 as well, which only goes forward, so that one is not as good. But they were a cheaper one. So, but I think these sets were still quite expensive compared to, you know, like the plastic electric sets that came out in the 50s and 60s. So what else to say really? Well, we'll have a look inside the box, I think, now. I was going to say something else about these, but I can't remember what it was. So we'll just have a look inside, and I'll see what you get. Right, so one of the first things you'll see here is an application for membership of the Hornby Railway Company, which you could fill in and send off. We'll have a look at that in a minute separately. But yeah, let's take a look at the set. So as you can see, looks fantastic. Most of these are in pretty poor condition, so to get one in a box that's all intact is quite unusual, for that money anyway. They're always for sale on eBay, etc. anyway, but very often you don't know what you're going to get. So like I say, I've collected a lot of this track, and I'm going to set it up outside in the summer at some point. So let's have a look. You see, powerful reversing locomotive, automatic braking from the track. So what is that? Well, that's this. You've got this here. So there was a whole series of stopping and reversing controls that come from the track, and there's little levers under the train that you can actuate by running over them. So although you don't get it's clockwork and you can't control it like an electric train, there was quite a few different sort of control systems that you could have that would control the train kind of semi-remotely. So this track, it kind of slots together, and then you slide these things in. So it's pretty good. It's pretty good, solid track. It's made of steel, and like I said before, it's dead rail because it's clockwork. So you don't have to worry so much about rust, and you don't have to worry so much about anything to do with the electrical connection. So we'll have a look at the locomotive. So this, let's see. I can't see what's on. So here she is. This is the Type 30. You can see there it says Hornby Type 30, made in England by Meccano Limited, Binns Road, Liverpool. That'll be. So there's two levers. That's the brake lever. When you release that, it lets the mechanism go, and you'll see underneath there's a bit underneath that moves. That is the one that actuates it from the track. So when you run over that, it will set the brake, and then that's it off, and if it hits that, the brake will go on. And that lever there switches reverse or forward on the mechanism. As you can see, I did put some oil in there. Probably could do with a little bit more on some of it, but I don't want to cover it in oil. It's pretty good condition. Some of the problems you have with the earlier ones is the wheels tend to break up because they're made of Mazak, and that sort of, some of the alloy was not that pure, and it just used to kind of split. But this all seems okay. These are quite crude castings for the con rods, and they don't actually connect. Those wheels are just spinning, and it just drives those wheels. Now, this cheaper end, you can see there's a lot of it is just lithograph tin plate. If I just bring in an example of one here, you can see it's a bit bigger, a bit bigger than normal. This is the sort of the top end stuff. So this is an original Type 1, which they started making in 1925. I don't know how old this one is because it was in quite good condition when I bought it, but as you can see, these were a little smaller, and the wagons for this are about another. They're considerably bigger than that. And they have better couplings. But I am going to be showing a bigger set with one of these types of engine in sometime later on. I've still got one of those to review. So yeah, so these ones were cheaper and simpler, and could fit in a. More importantly, I think the main thing was they could fit on a small table. So you get a tender, which is just tin plate construction, typical Hornby tin plate, and then we've got these very simple lithographed tin plate bent van. The ones that for the other bigger ones, as I say, they're a lot bigger, and I will do a comparison at some point when I review the other set. And you get a plank wagon, again just tin plate construction with the lithographed planks, but you know, pretty nice. And the couplings on these are quite simple, considerably simpler than the bigger style ones, which have kind of got a loop and a hook. On the very early ones, it was literally just a bent over piece on one end and a bit of a loop on the other end. I've got loads and loads of wagons and loads of track that I've bought over the years, and typically you can pick it up very cheaply at like collectors' fairs, and you know, you can buy like wagons really cheaply, and the track, as I say, you pay a tenner, you get a big Tesco bag full of it, you know, and things like that. So I've been collecting it, and I'm going to set something up in the garden at some point temporarily. So what I'm going to do now is we'll have a look at this leaflet first, and then we'll give it a run, see what she's like. Right, so inside you've got this leaflet that invites you to join the Hornby Railway Company. It's very old-fashioned looking. Obviously, the time, the boys are only mentioned on this, so I think Hornby Railways, Hornby and train sets these days are kind of considered more unisex, whereas when this was printed, I would imagine that girls would mainly have, you know, girls were given pretty poor toys, weren't they? They were like toy washing machines, toy ovens, you know, stuff like that. It's all a bit more equal these days. But the other thing that dates it here as well is it says worldwide, but it really means empire. Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Rhodesia, which became Zimbabwe in the 70s, South Africa. So it's all kind of colonial. So yes, I'll just read a bit of it. I mean, probably yes, it's quite pompous. So imagine this to go black and white, and the Hornby Railway Company exists to help every owner of a Hornby or Hornby 00 train set to get the utmost possible fun out of his hobby. Yeah, his hobby, it says. It provides a scheme under which enthusiasts can combine to form a miniature railway company of their own and run it on real railway principles. Yeah, so there you go. Hey, right, we're on the track and we're going to give it a go. So I've given it a good wind. So all that remains to do is to release the brake, which is this control here. And away we go. follow this stop mechanism. There we go. That'll trip the brake on. That's how you bring it to a stop. Winding down now. So it will crawl when it's run out of winds. So yeah, I think this is it's quite a cool little toy. So what else are we going to do? Right, let's just if I just detach this, you can see it's still got some power, but obviously pulling all of this and round this loop. Right, this is a full wind, so we'll go again. Release the brake, and away we go. Stop it using that. Release the brake again. And there we have it. So let's just give it a nudge and it should run down a bit more. Put the stop up, we probably don't need to because it's... There we go. So, I think that's a lot of fun. It is a little bit smaller than the... So this smaller series fits on here nicely. That's kind of a comparison with the sort of the bigger standard kind of series ones. Just to give you the thing. Now I was going to run the bigger engine round this loop, but they go too fast and they can't really cope with this radius. I think this is 1 foot radius. They do a 9-inch radius as well for the even smaller 0 series or 20 tank engines, and I've got a loop of that somewhere. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I'll see you in the next one. We're going to be doing French Meccano HO next.